Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about the ComboBox control. So here we are in Visual Studio 2019 and I have a grid with two columns and a style that sets the font size for the ComboBox. I'm going to collapse this style so we can have a little more space and add a stack panel in my grid first column. Okay, now let's add a simple ComboBox. Okay, this is the simplest ComboBox you can have. There is nothing in it. If we run this, it'll work, but there's nothing in it. Okay, it expands as we click on it, but again, we don't have anything in it yet. So let's go ahead and expand this ComboBox tag and add a couple items. So ComboBox item. If you remember from my listbox demo, we had listbox item. Now we have ComboBox items. It's a ComboBox. Makes sense. Right. Let's add another one. Item 2. Okay. And now if we run this, we'll have two items in our ComboBox. Okay. So for our next example, we are going to take this a notch up and we're going to customize this ComboBox item content. Okay, so let's add another ComboBox here. And this time, we're going to add ComboBox item and expand it. So ComboBox item can have another child element, and the child element can be pretty much anything. Well, most likely it's going to be a layout control. So we're going to add a stack panel here. That's going to be the content of our ComboBox item. So in here, now that I have the stack panel, I can add an ellipse and say, or can add an image or anything else. So for this one, let's do an ellipse. Let's get a fill of red and get a height, width or height of 10. We're basically customizing our ComboBox item. Okay. And then let's add text block. Say text of item 1. And I think I want this stack panel to be oriented horizontally. Okay, so let's run this and see what we get. Okay, so now we have a red dot, a red circle, and a text that says item 1. So now we customize our ComboBox item. Okay. Okay, so for our next example, we are going to see how to add data dynamically to our ComboBox. So for this one, I'm going to add another stack panel here. And inside here, I'm going to add a ComboBox. I'm going to give it a name. Let's call this CBO1 and close this. And then add a text box. Let's get a width of 200. And font size, I'm going to need the font size too. Font size of 24, and let's close it up. And okay, that's a little too large. Let's make this 150. And then add a button. And let's do we need a name for this button? Probably not. Actually, text, I need the content though. So let's say add. All right. And actually, let's set the orientation of stack panel to orientation to horizontal. Okay. All right, I have to resize this. So let's go ahead and give some width to our combo box. Let's go with 100 and button width 100. Let's increase the combo box a little more. All right, that's better, I think. Let's try this out. Okay, so combo box works. We have text box and we have a button. Now the idea is when we click this button, we want to add item to our combo box. So let's add a click event to our button. Click. Let's bring that in and add new event handler. Okay, let's go to our definition. All right, so here we want to say, oh, did we name our text box? No. Okay, so we need to name text box too. Let's call this TBX1. Okay, so what we want to happen is when the button is clicked, we want to say CBO1 dot items dot add. And I'm going to pass in the value we are receiving from the text box. TBX1 dot text. Quite simple. Okay. So if we run this now, we should be able to add data to our combo box in runtime. So if I say item 1, hit add, now we got it. Okay, let's add a couple more. We got 2 items now. Okay, so on and so forth. So that's adding data during the runtime. Okay. While we are here, we can actually do a quick example of how to add the combo box dynamically in runtime. So let's add a load event to our grid. Actually, no, I'm going to add a stack panel on the right hand side here. So let's go ahead and add a stack panel over there too. And place that in grid.column 1 and give it a name. Call this SP2. Okay, so let's add an event, loaded event, and with this guy we want to add a combo box dynamically. So combo box CBO equals new combo box. Okay, and combo box item we had. Let's add an item 2. So combo box item CBI equals new combo box item, and CBI.content equals, say, added dynamically. Okay, and then we can say stack panel 2 dot children dot add and pass in our, actually, yes, we'll pass in our combo box, but we forgot something, I think. We didn't add the combo box item to our combo box. CBO dot items dot add, and we need to pass in, God, in the wrong line, I think. So after we set the content, we want to add it to our CBO. CBO, yes, CBO dot items dot add and CBI. Let's run this. And perfect. In addition to adding items individually, just like list box, we can set the item source. So for this example, we're going to comment this out, these 3 lines. So we are creating the instance of the combo box. Next, I'm gonna create a string, list of strings, let's say list of strings. Let's call this items, or item list equals to new list of strings, and let's add a few items. So item 1, item 2, and item 3. Okay, so now that we have that list of string, we can set the CBO dot item source to our item list. Okay, let's run this again. And if we select this, now we have this list coming from our item source. All right. All right, for our next example, I'm going to add a new class here. So far we did, primitive types, strings, and things. So now let's add a class with an object. So we're going to create a student class. And we'll have a couple of properties here. Let's say prop name, string name, and let's have this property. I want this to be a list of ints, and let's call this scores. Okay, we got an error here. Oh, of course. Should be string, not struct. Okay. Next, we are going to add another class that's going to supply us the data. Let's call this students with plural. So I'm going to add a public static class, method here that's going to return a list of students. Okay, and let's call this get students. Okay, so we'll return new list of students, and let's add a few items here. New student, name. Let's call this first student John, and give some scores. So let's go with 1, 2, 3, and add another student. Call this guy Jane. Call this student Jane. All right, so that's good enough. And let's change the scores to 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So now we have a object as our source, a class as our data source. So until this point we had strings, list of strings, primitive types. Now we have an object, and let's go ahead and add another combo box here. Let's call this CBO students. Okay. So that we have our combo box, now we got to talk about a little bit about binding. WPF, when you talk about WPF, you got to talk about binding. So we want to bind this combo box to our class here, to our student class, to this data here. Okay, for this, I'm actually going to create a property here. That's going to be a type of list of students. Matter of fact, I'm going to actually create in the other class, in the main class up here. Yeah, let's go ahead and add a prop list of students. Let's call this students. And we're going to set this, initialize this to students dot get students. Okay. And I'm going to set the data context here. Well, actually, I can, I believe. Yeah, let's go ahead and set it anyway. Data context equals this. Okay. So now that we have data context set, I can just simply say here, item source is students, binding students. That's the name of my property. Right here. Let's actually copy and paste this so that since we don't have any intelligence, when we set the data context through the constructor. Okay, so now if you run this, actually that's the new, it's a new combo box, right? Okay, yes. All right. For a moment I thought it was the same combo box I used earlier. Okay, so let's run this, see what we get. And we got an error. We got an exception. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. All right, great. All right, so my guess is it should be here. New list of int. We didn't initialize the list of ints. Let's see if I'm correct. Let's try this. Let's try this out. And we got 2 students in here. Perfect. Now, since we have an object, we need to tell the ComboBox which property we want to display. So let's go to our ComboBox here. And let's say display member path. Type in binding name. Let's try that. And nothing. I think we shouldn't have. Just type in the property name, I think. So if I get rid of this brackets and the binding, I think that should be it. Yes, and now we have the names. Okay. All right, that brings us to our next example, which is when we select one of these items here, or students, we want to display the scores somewhere else. So for this, I'm going to add a list box. Let's get a height. Let's say 100. Let's get a background so we can tell where the list box is standing. It should be right below the ComboBox, but it's good to have a visual anyway. Alright, so for this one, we want to set the binding to item source. Actually, let's first do a selection change event. Okay, so let's do that first with the selection change event. So we want to use the ComboBox selection changed. Let's create a new event handler. And let's go to code behind. Alright, so here, we want to grab the ComboBox first. First ComboBox CBO, var CBO equals sender as ComboBox. Okay. Then we want to grab the selected item, var selected item equals cbo dot selected item. I'm gonna put a breakpoint right here and let's run this and see what happens. So if I select one of these, I'm gonna come over here and see what I have. So we got selected item John, we have and the score is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're getting the information we need. Now I can say to rename our list box. Not yet. So let's get a name. Let's call this list box students or scores. Scores better. So let's go with scores. So we can say for each var score in selected item dot scores. I'm not getting that for some reason. Okay, this is an object. All right, okay. That's because we need to cast this as a student. Okay, now I should be able to grab that property and then say listbox scores dot items dot add score. Okay, let's try this out. Let's get rid of that breakpoint. And we are getting our scores right here in our list box. When the selection changes, that's because we added 3 more because we are not clearing the list box. So we can say first we can say list box scores dot items dot clear. Let's try this. And then add it. Perfect. So now it's clearing and then adding. Perfect. So that's the selection changed event. We can do this another way. And for this, I'm gonna add another list box, maybe, or reuse the same one. So let's add another list box. No biggie. We have plenty of space, I think. This one we don't need a name. And let's change the background to something else, light blue maybe. That's fine. And let's go with the item source on this one. So item source of this one is going to be binding. We're going to bind to our combo box here. So element name, CBO students, and the path is going to be selected item dot scores. I think that should take care of it. Let's just run this and make sure it works. Alright, so when I select a student, the scores will display in our second list box as well. Beautiful. Alright, so that's binding through the selected item, the element name, and the other one was we used the selection changed event on our combo box. Okay. Now I'd like to go over a couple of properties of the combo box. For this one, I'm going to use my first combo box as an example. So the first property is I want to talk about is enabled. Default is true, but if you change this to false, the combo box will be disabled and it won't let you interact with it. Okay, actually not on the first one. You can't do anything with the first one. So this is enabled. The next one I want to touch on is editable. So is editable. And if we set this to true, now as you can see the color changed, kind of white now, which tells you it will allow the user entry here. Okay, and actually it gives you a suggestion, it gives you auto completion. So if you start typing in item, it will give you the rest of the sentence, auto complete it for you. But it also allows you enter something different if you want to say, if I think I did time picker demo. I think I showed you in that demo how you can select, enter something that you don't have already in your list and work with it. Okay, feel free to go check that out. It's totally based on ComboBox, that demo. So if you want to find out more about the is editable, feel free to go check it out. All right. I think that's it for now. Check out the description section for the link. I'm gonna probably post this the code in a link. So yeah, keep an eye out in the description section. You probably should be able to find the link to get hold of the code. So until the next one, have a good one.